Hey everyone, and welcome back to Miles on the Grid. I'm your host, Miles. In today's episode, we're meeting with the amazing Shannon McBride. Now, she has her own podcast, which is awesome. Please do check it out. Pit Lane Parley, if I'm correct in saying that
I'm
correctly.
just a co-host. It doesn't belong to me though. So
Well, you play an important part. And Shannon is heavily involved in the IndyCar world. Now, as most of my listeners know, I love all motorsport, primarily F1 and bikes of varying kinds. But Indy is something that's captured my attention over the last couple of years, particularly this season, with Mr. One Colton Herta just doing a save to save his life, the car, and his championship hopes. So before we get into that, Shannon, thank you so much for coming on the show.
yeah, absolutely, no problem.
Nice.
I'm all for talking IndyCars, so just bring me along.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, I know that I've been following you for a little while. I've seen some of your amazing work, as well as your gym days, which I know are very important. But do you just mind telling my listeners a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and how you love IndyCar so much?
So I attended my very first IndyCar race in 2000. So this will be my 22nd Indy 500.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my graduation present from high school. So that will age me. Don't do the math.
I'm not, I promise.
Then that next opening season year, I kind of luckily stumbled upon an internship with Greg Ray Racing and did an internship with them through the 500 in May that year. And I didn't give it up. I got two kiddos. So when they were born, I kind of took some time off, but I did that for about 8 solid years. And then I've been back in the series, just kind of hanging out, and people just, well, oh, there you are. Like, I'm not necessarily do anything all the time, but like, I'm just here for race cars since 2014. So
nice.
Yeah, so I took a couple year break, but I'm back.
Of course. Back and better.
So I'm a full-time transportation director. So I have a full-time job for our school district. And then I just, do all the IndyCar stuff on my free time.
I was about to say, dare I ask which one you love more, but I don't want to get you in trouble with any employers or whatnot. Obviously,
I'm
the
sure
school district
people
comes
understand what I love more. Yeah.
So, I mean, I personally know that IndyCar is a little different to F1, and there is a bit of a topic that I want to, or a narrative that I want to address a bit later, and I spoke about it with the racing incident team as well. But what does IndyCar mean to you? Like, what sort of passion does it elicit?
Honestly, it's so hard to really describe. Like, it just feels like family. Like, I have been to the Speedway more times than I can count, and I cry every single time my feet touch the ground.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's just like a family. Like, people are so kind and so inclusive, and everybody just wants IndyCar to succeed, and we all have that same goal in mind. So well, there's competitiveness. I mean, obviously our series is so competitive. Last year we had 9 winners out of 14 races. We had 9 different winners. So it's so competitive, but it's like a competitive in like a respectful way. You know what I mean? Like, the series as a whole wants that. They want people to try them. Like, right? Like, race me. Let's be good together. Let's put on a show. Let's do that. Whereas sometimes I don't feel like that's the case otherwise in other series. But then ultimately, like, that is my favorite thing. My favorite thing is the way that our entire paddock is so approachable for fans, for new people, for old people, for people who have been in it for forever, who have never stepped foot on a racetrack. It is so welcoming. Everybody wants to be like, let me show you how amazing this is.
Yeah.
And also, it's so amazing. The on-track product is second to none.
And I think I'd have to agree with you on the competitiveness, because I think I was watching, which race was it? It was Road America, I think, 2 weeks ago? Absolute carnage. You had any car from, I think it was number 1, not actually as in the actual car, as in number 1, but the first car on pole position down to about 19th. You could actually potentially win the race. Like, you're not out of
Yeah.
it. This isn't Lewis
Yes.
Hamilton having to climb from the back of the field like how he did on Sunday, which was incredible, but we're not here for F1. But you could actually have a set of people on the podium who, one, have either had a bit of luck at the misfortune or expense of others, or have just driven like a cracking race. Like, what do you think that brings to the series? Because I think from other motorsport perspectives, if you're looking at things like British Superbikes and MotoGP and World Superbikes, yes, there's that level of competitiveness and almost that level of anyone can do anything on any given day. But I think that IndyCar just takes it that step further. How is that achieved?
I think it's achieved a little bit of two ways. I think one, people like to root for someone, right? They want to cheer someone on, and they find different ways to make people their favorite person, right? So while I work in the series and I'm included, like Alexander Rossi, I am an Alexander Rossi stan. I will fight to the death for that man, right? But I love that because he's like my spirit animal with his attitude, right? So like I love that for him.
Yeah.
We have the same kind of like, meh, we don't really like people kind of thing, and so, but other than the last 2 crappy years he's had with Andretti, that's a whole nother story. You will almost always know, like, I can root for him and he's probably going to do well. And that goes for like the whole field, essentially. Yeah. I mean, 95% of our field could win any given race, given the correct circumstance. And it's not like, because 22 of them wrecked out and there's only 3 cars left, right? Sure. It's like, because they are so freaking good.
Yeah.
That it's so easy to cheer for the whole packet. It's just so easy to have that. And so I think that that's what is a little bit different than other series, because it's typically like a lot of other series, like you've got a handful of drivers who are probably going to win any race, right? And people don't like to not win, right? You don't like to root for people who aren't winning. Being the underdog all the time sucks. So, so like you don't pause.
That's okay.
Okay. So people, I mean, don't get me wrong, people like to root for the underdogs, but they like to root for the underdogs that they know are going to win eventually, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you may not get this reference, but like being a Detroit Lions fan, they haven't won in so many years, right?
I get it. Yep.
It gets like exhausting. You're like, oh, they're not going to win. I'm still here. Like, why? But like with IndyCar, almost anyone can win. And if they're not winning, like for instance, Dalton Kellett, who, drives for Foy and hasn't had the greatest of luck, he's still really engaged with fans. He makes those TikToks. He's all over Twitter. He engages with people. And so even if you're not winning, you're winning. Does that make sense? Like people love you. And it's really great when your on track stuff matches that. But like, because you're so damn likable, people don't care.
That's an interesting point you just raised, because I think with, I don't say F1 in particular, but with F1, because the barrier to entry is so high, and I'm either talking from a driver standard, but also the money side, which is ridiculous. I think it costs someone like $3 million just to race an F2, let alone get an F1 seat, plus sponsorship needed and whatnot. But I think because IndyCar over the last maybe 3 years, and that's just me doing some research, has made itself so approachable to fans, and drivers are actually interacting with tweets. So like I saw someone call out Alexander Rossi, and then I looked in the thread, and Rossi was responding to him. I thought, what the hell? I thought that would never happen. That would never. Well, it might, but to this day, it hasn't happened. Apart from maybe some people who I'm not going to call out, because I do want to get them on the show. But
the good, like the even different part about that is most of the time, 87% of the time, it's actually Alexander Rossi return. Like, it's not Liza, it's not his PR girl running his Twitter and like making comments for him. It's Rossi, and you can tell when it's him. You can tell. And Dalton runs all of his own social media. Stephen Wilson runs all of his own social media. Pato runs his own social media sometimes. You know what I mean? Like it just makes people feel included and part of something. Everyone wants to feel like they're part of something. That's the greatest thing about it, honestly.
So what would you say to someone like myself who's still fairly new to IndyCar? Like, how would I become more ingrained in the IndyCar community? And this is an open question because I think there are maybe a few of my listeners who are watching it thinking, "Oh my gosh, it seems great, but if I'm not American, am I still allowed to love IndyCar? Is it still?"
Absolutely, we will take you all. We will take all of you.
Yeah.
I think the first step is following all the drivers on socials. That is the first thing I would do. Then I would find all of us diehards, the podcasters, the journalists, anybody who covers IndyCar, follow us, because if I'm not covering it, there's somebody right next to me who is, and we all have a different view of things. So you get so many different viewpoints, right? Like, again, I love Alexander Rossi, so anything that he does is you're going to see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody else hates Alexander and they're going to be like, yeah, but look at this. And it's like, okay, that's kind of a fun battle, right? So we'll do that. You've got people who love Penske. You've got people who aren't crazy about Penske, but you have all of these different viewpoints. But in the end, we all are just wanting IndyCar to grow as much as possible. So I think that is really your best way. And just this week, I've had several people tagging me on Twitter like, hey, if you want to know more about IndyCar, follow her, like do this. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has. If I don't know the answer, I'll find it. I'll find somebody who does. Like, I just want people to love it because I really feel like you're missing out. And I really feel like there is that weird divide between F1 fans and IndyCar fans and why you can't be both. And I can't understand it. Like, I watch F1. I'm a fan of F1. I love Lewis. Like, I want him to succeed. That doesn't make IndyCar any less for me, right?
Yeah.
But for me, IndyCar is far more accessible. I can't spend $5,000 on race tickets.
Yeah.
And I can't spend $5,000 on race tickets. I also don't want to spend $5,000 on race tickets and not have any sort of backside or access. Like, you don't get it. You can buy a bronze badge, which will get you into the garages at IMS for the entire month for $150, I think, which gets you access to all of the drivers.
Wait, what?
The whole month. Yes. And it gets you entrance into the track every day that the track is open. So for $150, I think it's $150. It might have gone up just a tad, but even if it's $175, if you are someone who wants to go and spend time at the racetrack, otherwise it's $20 a day to get in, you're going to sit out there and not have any access. You spend that for the entire month. That gets you in for the GP stuff, that gets you in for all the IndyCar qualifying, all of that stuff. Why wouldn't you? You can meet every single driver in the garage. You can take pictures with every single driver in the garage. You can't get that with F1. And that, I think, is truly the difference, because I know there's the elitists and they're the greatest and it's the pinnacle of motorsport, and okay, great. I'm not denying that those drivers are incredibly freaking talented, And all of motorsports is about money. There's no way.
Absolutely.
If you don't have money, you're not going to go racing. If you don't have a boatload of money, you're definitely not going to go racing one, right? You can maybe if you don't have yacht money, you're not going. You might be able to have speedboat money. And right? But so it's just a difference. And I just wish that people would just give it a chance. Don't be, well, I'm F1 and so I can't love IndyCar. I just can't. It would be detrimental to my fandom. It's not. You can be both. You can love both. You can experience both, right? That's the key.
The thing is, it's interesting you say that, because I was often of the same opinion for a long time. Been watching F1 since I was in nappies, way back when. But when I first saw IndyCar, you get introduced to it with the 500. It's the biggest event that Indy has, and I think one of the biggest in the world. If anyone wants to query that, just look up the Triple Crown, please. I don't want to have to over-explain that. But essentially, Indy, to me, wasn't, coming from the UK, it wasn't as marketed, or it wasn't marketed as well as F1. So I was always seeing Silverstone and Spa and Monza and a few other places pop up under Canada. And I've been to a few races. Yes, nearly cried at the amount of money that I've spent going to those races. But I think Indy offers you that difference of, dare I say, opinion, and also level of accessibility, like you just touched on. So for me to hear that you can get access to the paddock, the track, the drivers, and get autographs all for $150, so roughly £120, that's insane. Whereas I think this was a slightly discounted trip, so maybe don't take these figures as gospel, but going to Austria a few years ago, 4 years ago now, that still cost me nearly $1,000 when I think about hotel, accommodation with the guys. It's fine. Yeah, accommodation, flights, ticket, and that was discounted because of some connections. So I think it's truly a tough one. And like, what do you think that IndyCar? Actually, no, I'm going to touch on that a bit later. But what do you think of the divide, and what do you think could be done in order to sort of, I don't want to say introduce new people to IndyCar and sort of remove that stigma, but to get this idea of, F1 is the only racing sport in the world. Yes, it's fantastic. It's elite, and some of the drivers, in my opinion, just are the best in the world, IndyCar or F1 included, or GT racing. But yeah, what do you think could be done to remove that sort of barrier?
I think the only thing that could be done is if we could get an American on the damn grid for F1 so that they can see that it's not talk and that it's talent.
Sure.
I think, and this isn't a slight, I just think that most European F1 fans are dead set on they are the best and that is it. And nobody else is ever going to be any better than these 22 guys right here. It's just not going to happen. I mean, okay. But I think I would love to see one spec car. I don't care what it comes from. Just give me a spec car and give me all of F1 grid and all of IndyCar grid, and let's go racing and see what the hell happens.
Oh, that poses an interesting or a bit of a fun challenge. Okay, I know you may not be able to answer this just due to your current obligation. Who is the best in IndyCar for you right now? I have my own theory, but who's the best out and out racer?
Now, honest to God, it is so hard to tell you that. I can never ever count out Scott Dixon because even when he's not being successful, he's still successful, right? Yeah. Like he's still made top 10 in every single race, even though he's not won. The way that he drives that car and puts himself in those positions is just incredible. Colton Herta, however, saved that damn car on that road course and came out to win, right? Yeah. So, and Pato, he is equally as talented. And if he hadn't gotten spun around and into the grass, he would have been back on that road course and probably have won it, or it would have been a great battle with him and Colton. It's really, really hard for me to tell you who's the best because almost every single one of them have like 5 best qualities. It's just how the circumstances play out. And that's one of the good things about IndyCar is that because it's a spec series, everybody's racing with the same equipment, right? Everybody's got the chance. You don't have to have Mercedes money or Red Bull money to beat somebody else, right? Like that's the thing that I don't love about F1 is that it's not a fair chance for everybody.
I mean, that is a good point because I think the fact that it's spec brings back that pure racer in you. It's like I'm not comparing it to F2, but I'm just thinking in terms of how the cars are structured. It's like having nothing, okay, you've got push to pass, you've got DRS, but it's literally you versus your teammate or you versus I don't want to say the opposition, that sounds a bit cruel, doesn't it? But the rest of the grid. Your road racing without road racing, for any legal listeners that are listening to this before something happens to my license, but you're having a good you're having a good challenge as opposed to I've got 2 tenths up on this person just due to the amount of downforce that has been applied to my front wing, for example. And don't get me wrong, I really do love the engineering side of F1. I think it pushes the boundaries. And I think even WEC does this. They push the boundaries as to what's possible, like with aero, with the amount of downforce that's going either on the underbody, over the body, diffuser, etc. But I do think that still applies to Indy, but I think it just applies in a different way, and that's what people fail to realize sometimes. You still have it's not like these cars are Legos. Like they're not just being put in a road car and said, okay, like go drive it. It's not like a Cup Series down at Silverstone where I am. Like you still got to have some engineering excellence. It's just a fairer playing field. So maybe a challenge of, I don't know, I don't want to say a B driver in F1 versus a B driver in Indy, but maybe, because I don't know if the number ones would commit to that, but maybe that could be like a good tail off, seeing how different drivers adapt as well. You know, that the lack of downforce will hurt some F1 drivers, and the added G-shock or added G-force will definitely. I think I think Callum Isler was saying the first time he got into the IndyCar. Gosh, I sound like such a UK person, right? Into the IndyCar. The first time he tried IndyCar and was doing a practice session, he was so confused by how much strength it took. And he had like blisters peeling off his hands and whatnot. And I think that opened my eyes, and a few other fans' eyes. So, okay, cool. This is not a proper series, but it's it's racing. You know, it's
racing.
Still the pinnacle of racing. So.
And I think a lot of F1 fans are thrown off by it's a spec series. And like you said, yes, it's a spec series, but if it was a spec series, then everybody would be winning if everyone is having the same car. Everybody just has the same chassis. The way you do your downforce, the way you do your wings, the way the driver does the weight jacks and the fuel and all of that is part of the competitive and is part of the engineering. It's just they don't see it because all of our cars look alike, you know? Like you can't see the difference in the wings, or you can't see that the floor is different, or you can't. And I think that that's where they lose that. And I also have found that sometimes they're just not willing to budge on it maybe being good, right? Like they've stuck to their guns so much that F1 is it and their thing is better that they sometimes won't even give it a chance to find out.
I agree. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a situation where we do want. Well, I personally want. I know you just mentioned. Well, I want F1 fans, different series being compared as well. Yes, you're always going to have those superstars, those Lewis's, Max, Charles, Colton, Pato, Alexander Palou, like for example, Scott Dixon. Like, how can you forget Scott? But at the same time, I do think it's about understanding that every race series is different. I think I was talking to Josh Ravel about this, and he was saying, like, in New Zealand, they've got the Bathurst 500, or is it Australia where it takes place?
Australia has Bathurst.
That's still going to be as good as it could be. It doesn't mean it's any less elite. It just means that we don't added, what's the word, fanfare? Or added drama around F1. Now, talking of drama, I've heard rumours, and you might be able to clear this up. I've heard rumours that due to the success of Survive, other series like J Championship and Indycar, Tour de France, considering doing their own sort of mini documentary. I know MotoGP have done one, and their one's really good. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. But what's your take on that? Because it's yielded some interesting results. It's brought great fans in, but at the same time, it's led to a different type of community.
I think that if IndyCar decided to do a docuseries in that way, that we would have to do two things. We would have to really focus on our on-track product and really focus on the personalities of our drivers.
Okay.
Because we don't have a lot of that political infighting between the teams, right? We just don't have that. Yes. We don't have that backstabbing. We don't have that, he's going to go and take his seat. Like, that just doesn't really happen in IndyCar. And so we'd have to find the other good parts of it and convince people that you want to watch it because of this, right? So it would, I would be afraid that people who would go into it looking for a Drive to Survive sort of feel would be disappointed.
Okay.
Because it's not going to be that drama, wouldn't say like the on-track stuff wouldn't be drama, but like there wouldn't be the drama between the teams. It wouldn't be like that. Literally the guys in the paddock are all friends, everybody is friends. And so it would be more like, hey, let's go film whoever put all of the Orbeez in Connor Daly's hot tub as a prank, right? Like, let's go do that instead of, who's fighting who at that point. So it would just have to be the script would have to be different.
Okay.
I don't think it would be a bad thing. Any publicity is good. I just think that what people would come to expect from a series like that is probably not what they would get.
That's an interesting point, and I think it's quite a valid one, because I think a lot of media companies are now jumping on the hype. A lot of, dare I say, championships and organizations are thinking, yes, let's replicate the same success. But it does have a cost, and it also has a I think it has an expiry date. I don't want to say, hey, yes, Drive to Survive isn't going to do well, because I do think that who produced it, an incredible job in achieving what they set it. Whether it was always the right thing to do in terms of customization, but like you said, there isn't that us versus them culture in IndyCar, from what I'm understanding. So maybe there's a different approach for them to market this a little bit better.
I'll also say I have found, so I was not really an F1 person. I wasn't going to get up at 3 a.m. and watch it. Right? But when COVID hit, I went to season 1 of Drive to Survive and I watched it. And I was like, oh, I could be into this, right?
Yeah.
So I watched all of them. But then here's what happened. So I became a fan and I watched all the races. Then season 4 came out and I'd seen all of that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I'd seen all of that stuff. I followed all the stuff on Twitter. I knew what was happening in the background. It didn't hold my interest anymore. I'm like, oh, I don't care. I watched that race. I know what happens. I watched that race. So longevity wise, right? Yes. When you've gotten your goal of getting your fans who are now watching the races and who are now attending the races and are now engaged, how do you keep that? Because if you just keep regurgitating what they're watching already, you're going to lose it. Yes. Right? I mean, I didn't even finish season 4.
I watched one episode just to check the, I don't know why I did it. I lost a bit of sanity, and it was Abu Dhabi. I didn't end up finishing it. I thought it's far from what actually happened. And like, we watched it, it's not real, but I get where you're coming from. But to capture attention is to keep it and to further engage. I think it's been pushed more onto the teans and onto the FI, or I say Liberty, to produce it. I'm just thinking in terms of wrapping up, because I know that we've got a bit of an interesting time limit that popped up. So apologies for that. What would you say to a fan of IndyCar, and someone who's a fan of F1, is taking a bit of flack, and this isn't me, but I've seen a few who's taken a bit of flack for the Americanization of F1, and whether it can actually compete in America alongside Indy, or where Indy is. I've even heard Indy is apparently lying out in comparison to F1. I doubt that's real, because I was in Sainsbury's 10 p.m. 2 weeks ago at night watching IndyCar as doing my shopping. So, like, what would you say to that person?
I would, again, and I don't want to sound like I'm like dogging you guys, because I'm not, but I feel F1 has that elitist attitude, like, oh, it's a European series and you can't have it. You can't sit at our table, right? I can't fathom a world that in motorsports that having more fans and more races accessible to more people is a bad thing. Like, I just don't understand that. I would love to go to the Vegas race. I'd love to go to the Vegas race. I can't afford to go to the Vegas race, but I would 1000% go to that race. You can't tell me that the same person who went to Miami is probably going to spend another 10 grand to go to Vegas. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
People who go to COTA, Texas is a really big state, right? Like, most people aren't going to travel to Texas, to Vegas, and to Miami. You've got your East Coast, you've got your Midwest for Texas and your West Coast for Vegas. We're not oversaturating the market. We're not trying to steal things from you. If you want more fans, if you want people to want to love F1, you have to give them that access. Most Americans are not going to travel to Monaco.
No.
They're just not, right? They're not going to Spa. We're not going to Germany. It's just like, that's not going to happen. So if you want more fans, your European fans are going already, right? You don't really, I mean, if you're an F1 fan, if you live in Europe, or you're almost always an F1 fan. If you're a motorsport fan, you're an F1 fan.
Yeah.
We have you. They have you. You don't have us. Why would you not want them? Right? And the flip side of that goes the same thing for IndyCar. I would love for us to travel and do something in Europe. However, it's not cost effective. It's not cost effective for our teams to do that. It's really hard to fly race cars across the country, And I don't know, because of the way IndyCar is accepted in European countries, I don't know if it would be cost effective for us to do that, because would anybody go to those?
I think that's a good point, and I do think, and I'm wrapping up because I can see the timer. I do think that let's say, for example, DTM, so the German Touring Championship, and even BTC over here, whilst they have cult followings, I personally am not going to travel to Hockenheim to go. Well, I might
Right.
because tickets are cheap, but like I wouldn't regularly travel to. Last question, which we actually had coming from not Connor, not on Twitter, and if we could answer this in 10 seconds, so it's a bit of a challenge.
Okay.
Which driver prank or team prank have you ever witnessed, and what?
So I didn't witness it, but I heard about it because I was on the phone with some team people when it happened. But back when we would go to Japan, when Dan Weldon and Dario Franchitti and Tony Kanaan and Brian Herter were all on Andretti, Dario unpacked all of Dan's left shoes. So he ended up in Japan with all right shoes.
That's mad. How did he drive?
He had to go buy them. He had to go buy shoes. Okay, so after Dan and them got back from Japan, I don't know exactly what happened in that, but I do know that they used to do a radio show at the Speedway like every once a week during the month of May, and so each of the teams come and hang out, and so it was TK and Dario and Brian Herta, and Dan wasn't there yet, and so we were kind of like, he's not normally late. Wonder what's going on. And all of a sudden you see him kind of like peeking out from behind the back of these curtains of this backdrop that they had, right? And he had 2 pies full of whipped cream.
Okay, yeah.
And got right behind Dario and just like put them both in his face. And then he took off running and Dario took off running after him.
Yeah.
It's just a freaking nightmare. But it was like, and that's right? That's what we do. That's the kind of fun we have. This morning, Alexander Rossi's golf cart ended up on 4 trash cans. I don't know who did that. Everybody has seen Connor Daly's hot tub full of Orbeez. Like, who did that?
I did see that.
It's so fun. And it's just like, that's the personality of these guys. And like, it's just so fun. One year somebody put blue icing on a cake for Elio's birthday because his birthday's in May. And it ended up in his face. Well, the blue icing dyed his hair. And so he ended up doing interviews with blue hair.
Nah, I can't lie. I have a little bit of OCD, or maybe a bit more. I would be furious. I'd be thinking, yeah, it's fine. Go on camera. Hey, everyone. And then bang. Like, looking like a smurf. So.
But you know what? Like, it's almost like we expect it. And like, if nothing happens, then it's kind of a bummer. So, yeah. So they're, it's a good time. It's a good time full of good people.
So if I were to, well, hopefully move to America. I'd have to talk to my wife about that one. But if I'm heading out to America in the next couple of months, which I'm going to be doing, and there's an IndyCar race nearby, which would be the best one to either historically or from your personal?
I'd say coming up, the next 3 races that I would absolutely say you need to attend, if you could, would be Road America, Iowa for the Oval,
yes, or
Nashville, because Nashville, the atmosphere for Nashville was incredible.
Oh, okay.
So those would be my next 3 pick. If you can go to any of those would be the ones to do it.
And I know some people say, well, you haven't spoken about the 500 this weekend. So last question, you may be able to answer this, you may not. Who is your proverbial money on to win the 500 and take home the trophy?
I have no idea. I have no idea who's going to win this race, and that's the best thing about it. Like, again, never ever count out Scott Dixon. However, I can't give you the stat because I'm real bad at stats, but not very many people have won the 500 from the pole. So being on the pole doesn't necessarily guarantee you win like it would on a road course, right? Like you start at the beginning, that's almost always, but ovals don't work that way. Alex Palou came in second last year. He's hella fast. All of the Ganassi cars are hella fast.
Yeah.
I am not counting out Jimmy Johnson to be in the top 5.
No.
He is fully comfortable on that speedway, and he has been impressive all freaking month. I'm not counting out David Malukas to do something really great as a rookie. Callum has done really great stuff.
Yeah.
You never count out Ed Carpenter. Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't have an answer. I have no idea. If somebody told me I had to put money on something, I would be like, no, I'm not. I don't.
Yeah.
Or can I put $1 on 33 people?
I mean, I guess it gives you
out. I don't know how that works.
It gives you some good odds, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. I know Jimmy Johnson. I think he was he fourth in the. It wasn't practice. He was fourth in quali.
He was third in practice yesterday. He was third quick in practice yesterday.
Yeah, he's rapid.
And I mean, he made the top 12, right? So he made the fast 12, just barely missed it. That's because he brushed the wall. If he hadn't brushed the wall, who knows what would have happened, right? So I can't tell you. I got nothing. I'm just ready to see it.
Well, I'll be watching straight after Monaco. So my weekend is pretty much going to be packed out with racing. I personally have Juan Pablo Montoya to win.
Oh, really?
I know.
Okay.
I think he qualified 30th. My heart says Callum Ilott or Pato Ward. Well, my mind's saying Callum, but my heart is saying Juan Pablo because he's one of the quickest.
He won. He won from dead last. It's not impossible.
This is so he's done it. So yeah, here's hoping. But Shannon, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with me and my listeners. Everyone, if you do want to find out either more about IndyCar or more about the wonderful work that Shannon's doing, please do check out her Twitter. Do you have any other social media accounts which you like to promote or?
I am IndyCar Chick on Instagram, so you can follow me there. IndyCar Chick on Twitter. My Facebook's just for my family, so
we don't talk about that platform anymore.
We don't talk about that. Follow us on Pit Lane Parlay for the podcast, and I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure that you'll definitely be on the show again, probably on Monday after 500. I'm joking. I'll give you some time.
You let me know. I'll be here.
But we'll look forward to speaking with you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.